Nú erum við hérna með hann Sasha sem ætlar að fara yfir Sentinel. Þetta seinni parturinn af, hann var með hérna í fyrra Sentinel og hérna nú ætlar hann að taka svona áframhald af Sentinel og við ræddum aðeins áður og hann svona hann búinn að vera að fylgjast svolítið með hvernig ástandið á Íslandi varðandi innbrot og svoleiðis, þannig að hérna, hann mun aðeins svona kannski fara yfir það eða svona hafa fyrirlestin út frá því. Þannig að hérna við skulum bara sjá hvað hann segir. So welcome Sasha, thank you for giving us your time on teaching us Azure Sentinel. And,
you're welcome. It's nice to be here again.
Yeah.
We have an hour, but I hope it will be some interesting information there.
Yeah, and hopefully we will be able to get you to Iceland sometime soon. So that would be awesome.
Yeah, we were planning actually, my family and I. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, great. So I'll just give you the word and you can start.
All right. Okay. So it's a second look on the Azure Sentinel, and I got the information, in fact, that that recently there was a security breach, and well, it's not the only one that happened, and that actually I think it deserves a little bit of background, like 5 to 10 minutes. I would like just to say a few words about it. And before actually getting to Sentinel, but it is connected to Sentinel in fact. So this is well, actually, let's get done with slides. I only have two, this one and that one. Actually, my name is Sasha, and I've been doing training in security in Azure and so on for quite a while. And then and doing also the consultancy in training and other things. Well, Microsoft 365, but mostly tied to the security, not SharePoint and everything. We're not specialized in that. And actually, that would be it for the slides. So I planned this totally without slides, but actually, let's go to the browser. In fact, let me just share that one. It is this one. So, okay, sharing the actual. I have glasses, but I have to come closer. Okay, that's it. In these 4 monitors here. All right. Yes. You should see that. Okay. Anyway, I've got acquainted with the recent attack, in fact, and the things that happened recently. What I wanted to actually say before actually going to the to Azure Sentinel, why it happened and what it is. In fact, I would like to also switch very quickly back to the slides, because I wanted to show you this thing. Anyway, very quickly, it is about zero trust, but it is in connection with, in fact, it is in connection with Sentinel. So come on. Yes, it is in connection with Sentinel. Few slides, and I'm going to skip the major presentation and just tell a few slides. In connection with this, so why we're having zero trust conversation is because of the shift in security that happened throughout the time. So the most of the why in fact did it happen, and why it happens all around the world? Because we in fact have a lot of companies still have the mindset of 2, 5, 10 years ago, and we know that 2 years in IT is it's very much. Bad people, hackers, actually go imagine the flow of the water. So if you pour water somewhere, and then the water will actually find the easiest way, the shortest way, and the easiest way actually to get to the other end. So the hackers are doing the same. So whatever we do, they are exploiting the holes in our defenses. So we have a very hard time because the hackers, the attackers, actually need to be right only once, and we need to be right all the time, and that's exhausting. So out of the million times that they attack, they only need one successful attack, and we only need one successful attack to be compromised. So the point is that what I want to tell you that is there is no perfectly secure system. That's something very important. And there is no system that cannot be breached and break in. But we are looking to do two things here. The attackers actually have we have defender return and defender investment, and the attackers also have investment and return. So they invest knowledge, and they want in return the data, and we have to do that as well. So what we need to do, we invest security budget, time, attention, and we also what we want to do is ruin the attacker return on investment, and that is how by ruining the monetization, so and ruining the time. So by extending the time and extending the raising the cost, it is where the attackers will actually be deterred. But here comes the Sentinel as well, and other things too. So why we are talking about that? Because there is no perfectly safe place, a safe system, and eventually, and in connection to Sentinel, it's not the question whether you will be eventually breached, but when actually. So the point is that we include everything that is in our capability and possibility to secure, to raise the security, and Azure Sentinel is just one of it. So Azure Sentinel actually will give you the data of something that actually happened. Well, we investigate, and we try to in fact make things not to happen. And in this case, let me share again the window. And in this case, we are happy if we don't actually find anything in Sentinel. The Teams actually keeps dropping my. Okay, you should see the screen now. I think it. Do you see the actual browser? Yeah, I think it's okay now. So what? All right. So we actually want that the Sentinel doesn't find anything, and the security center doesn't find anything, and so on. So we really want that to happen. So we don't want any incidents there. We don't want any data. So if we actually have data there, that means that that something is happening, and if we have more red data, then it means that we are in trouble. Typical response, typical time between the breach happen and between when we know about the breach, and it's varies, but different researchers actually found out that this number is can be between 200 days, 300 days, more or less, and that's huge. And in fact, we will probably, if something happened, we won't be able to actually stop probably and shorten that time in a second. So or in a 30 seconds, so nothing happens. It will probably be like an hour, 2 hours, 1 day, or 2 days, and that or half an hour. But something eventually will happen because the data needs to be generated there and analyzed and so on. So the point is, beside having the one link in the chain, and that's the Sentinel, please do backup and implement everything that it's in your capability or possibility to secure everything. So that means the SQL servers and TDE and data encryption and everything. So routing and so on. So the Sentinel is just one part of that. And that recent happened, that breach in Iceland and in ransomware, it's extremely similar to what happened when we were probably I told you already, but we were consulting in a huge factory, and that factory it was a big manufacturer that actually produced cars. So and the other ones as well. There are different examples. But the point is, the factory that should run, it stopped for a week, and that factory actually stopped and caused other linked factories to stop functioning as well because of the ransomware, and all because of the one person actually clicked one link in an email that was linked to a malicious payload, and then the ransomware actually infected, encrypted the production machines and non-production machines, and mostly of the 90% of the machines, 95 were encrypted. And these factories, not just one, but multiple factories, actually stopped working, and the cost was hundreds of millions of euros, and all because of a link. And that probably wouldn't happen if, first of all, the users were actually properly educated and actually briefed about the possible things that happen. And of course, Azure Sentinel is here, one link in the chain that can help us do what we want to achieve, and that's the better security. But let's go first of all into the Azure Sentinel and see what's in there. We've seen that Azure Sentinel can actually have multiple apps, multiple log analytics workspaces where the data is it's being streamed actually and taken care of, and the Azure Azure Sentinel actually gets the data out of it and analyzes. So we can have multiple of them. So for separation, for purpose of the cost, for example, for separation of customers, or whatever the reason is, we can have multiple log analytics workspaces. So, but first of all, when we connect to the Log Analytics workspace, actually what we need to do, when we create everything, when we create the Log Analytics workspace, I've also mentioned that in the previous session as well, but nevertheless, let's take a quick look at it. So that Log Analytics workspace has its pricing per se, because the Log Analytics workspace has its own pricing, meaning it can be used for other purposes, not just for Azure Sentinel purposes. And then the Azure Sentinel has its own pricing, meaning how much data is being analyzed. So the pricing is here, of course, and then you can see the data ingestion. So it's easy to look at what type of the data is, in fact, is which resources, in fact, are generating such data. Let's take a look at this one. Maybe we can have a little bit more granularity in here in settings. Probably not, but let's take a look. Well, we can see the different parts. So updates, VM insights, anti-malware, etc., etc. But let's switch to this one because this is the main one. I hope that I will have the data actually here refreshed, because I had some problems ingesting the data in Log Analytics workspace. But let's see what we have after that and see whether it's refreshed. I tried to do that 3 times from yesterday, but hopefully it's going to be refreshed in a couple of minutes if it's not already. So the pricing is here, and then for the settings, it's first of all, you should enable anti-behavior analytics. So enable UBA. It actually gives you the possibility to here it's already enabled. We've created checked everything that's supported for that. So it means it analyzes all audit logs, Azure activity, security events, and sign-in logs for a user and entity behavior analytics. What's entity and user? Well, entity is an IP or a router IP or a PC, like a VM or a physical or virtual or identity, and analyzes these their behavior and gathers the data, so we can have deeper insights on it. So as you connect the workspace for at Azure Sentinel, it's locked for delete, and of course this is to protect, of course, any misunderstandings. And the Log Analytics itself workspace, we can actually click and actually see what it's streaming inside and from the virtual machines, Azure Activity Log, etc., etc. So the first thing when you open that, actually, you'll see the in fact you'll see the events and alerts over time, and here's the in fact the color coding. You can see the for alerts and events over time for the time frame, and also as well the trend of the events. So the amount of the kilos or megas or millions, it means thousands or millions of the data from yesterday, and it means that green is positive, so well, it increases, and here positively means the alerts are decreasing and incidents are decreasing if we look at yesterday. And eventually, if we have any potential malicious event, you can see that these can be geotagged, of course, and of course some other dashboards here, like recent incidents and so on. But what we need to actually do, first thing to see is to go to the incidents, where actually we have, well, of course, we have logs here to immediately type in some custom query language and so on to see what happened. And I see that the sample data I've generated, let's see, a little bit in 30 days, is not actually here. So I've generated. Well, I ingested some data. Let me see if that's somewhere in here. No. 30, 29. Let me see a little bit more. 29. No. All the same, similar thing. Well, I should have had a lot of different Solari gate and everything ingested, but I think it is something wrong with the data being placed wrongly in log analytics workspace. But nevertheless, let's take a quick look at what we have. So first of all, there are a lot of incidents here, so thousands. So we can see the incident ID, and we can see the alerts, and actually which product actually generated the incident, of course, in time and so on. If we want to assign the owner, it means the person who will actually the window is here also some buggy. It's the person who actually will take the person here's the person actually that will take care of that incident, and that will actually take care of it. But let me quickly filter that for more meaningful data, and for some reason this is very hard to do. Okay, so there it is. Refresh a little bit. Let's take the let's take the severity, and we can filter out of low informational and some less urgent incidents here. But first of all, before we do that, security efficiency workbook here actually can give us the insight of in fact, come on, how our Azure Sentinel detection is in fact efficient. Come on. I can't. Oh, yeah, there it is. So first of all, we pick a subscription, then the workspace. I'll pick this one, Sentinel SK, this one. Incident created over time. So we can have a bigger picture of what's happening inside. So we can see the incidents created over time. Immediately, we can actually see some anomalies. So this is a typical, let's say, amount of events, incidents created. Typically, it means that there's a majority of low, but there we have some high, 3.6% of high, and some medium, 4%. So these are pretty low. These can be easily dismissed, probably, but not neglected, but just taken care of easily. But we can see the trend and the pattern, and we can see something that is out of the ordinary, of course. And then, of course, we can filter that for different workspaces and incident creation times and so on. And actually, it will give us the baseline and actually points to focus on. For example, we might discover something if we take a look at this data points, so that are in fact coming outside of the baseline. So and so on. So there are a lot of this kind of data. So in fact, we might even have to put down the write down the data where these defender alerts have been generated, and then look at that time frame as well. So this is the security operations efficiency, which has a lot of data that you can take a look at, and of course, after you've done that, then in order for these incidents to be actually streamed into Sentinel, or actually logged into the log analytics workspace, we need to connect some data, in fact. and stream the data in there. First of all, there are some connectors that are actually I'm going to say that preferred, and actually that are a must to have, especially the Azure logs, and really slow, and I don't know why is that. Let me. Okay, so Azure Active Directory, or Azure Activity, and Azure Information Protection, Key Vault, and so on. So other these things like Azure Active Directory are a must. So when we open a connector page, then there's information about the connector itself. The prerequisites, so workspace, diagnostic settings, so required read and write permissions, tenant permission, and so on. Plus, then there are other configuration steps that we need to perform, and these are specific for the actual connector, in this case for Active Directory. The other connectors might have different configurations, and this one is new, and it's the ADFS, which I don't have at the moment, so I haven't included that. Once we apply changes, it means once we connect the connector, then we have the next steps, the recommended workbooks, and we will see about the workbooks afterwards. The recommended workbooks to apply and to turn on are these that are, of course, different for each and every connector. And this is the one that is so every Azure, or let's say Office 365. Of course, if we have Office 365, should be free. I'm 99% confident that it's still free, but I might be wrong. So things change, and I haven't checked this for a few months if the Office 365 data ingested and analyzed is in fact free. So you have to check that for yourself. What is also a very important is also a taxi connector, which in fact gives you the threat intelligence information. So let's open the connector page in here. And I have these taxi connectors in here already defined. But what you should do is you should do that. Let me go to the taxi. So the taxi servers, just moments. We have the taxi server. In fact, is these. This is the address, HTTPS exactly. So this is the address for the taxi service. What is the taxi? It is the service, the APIs for exchange of the intelligence in information, and we are using the service actually to feed in. This should work, but come on.
One question while this is loading.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, two questions. The monitoring for Office 365.
Yes.
Do you know if the monitoring is free or also the log ingestion?
Monitoring. I mean the analytics, Azure Sentinel analytics is free, but storing the data in log analytics is always something that you have to pay for.
Yeah. Okay.
In this case, it's just the analytics that the Sentinel is doing is in fact it is free. So, but please check if this is true. I can't say if it's still. It has been a couple of months ago when I've checked.
Okay. The second question, just a quick one. I've been testing out like the Azure Active Directory monitoring, and got impossible travel. There is an issue where people are logging into VPNs. So, of course, they get impossible travel based on that. So it's basically false positive. They're going home and logging into VPN to get the US Netflix or something like that. Is it possible to group it together and can Sentinel learn if it is false positive to minimize, the escalations of tickets?
Yeah, you can do that in the Cloud App Security as well, and actually you can write a you can in fact change the you can change the in fact the analytics here to let's say to group more of these together, and plus change the Cloud App Security and make an exception, for example, for specific users that are there that are traveling, or in fact you can make a well, this is really something that is I know it is painful. I mean, it is a hassle, but and especially well, what you can do is take a VPN VPN software that you have, for example, like NordVPN or something like that, whatever it is, and then make force or configure the VPN client to actually. Usually, you can pick the VPN server from a particular location. So what you can do, you can whitelist that particular server that is coming from that country, for example, like NordVPN, and or instruct users to always connect through these, or make a playbook, which is the log analytics logic app that will send you an alert or email immediately when this thing is alert happens. So you can go and investigate and actually allow or not allow that user for a specified amount of time. And I wouldn't leave that on automatic, but I would I know maybe I'm paranoid, but that's in a couple of recent years, 2 years, I've seen more and more these things happening. So it is a little bit probably a hassle, but it might help when a user probably let's say that we know that the user is going somewhere and that will be traveling, so we can make an exception for that user, for example, and dismiss the alert for that particular one, or probably the best combination would be also for configuring the VPN client actually to connect always to the same server from the same country. So that would be also very useful. But at the end, it's always something that it's tricky. But if we have a lot of different users that are traveling, then of course, if these are the same people, then we can then make an exception or make a rule in Cloud App Security and do that as well for them. And this will be something that that will actually lower a little bit these anomalies, or actually the false positives. And well, but it needs to a little bit fine tune and see actually what is the pattern and how actually the how many of these alerts are from which address spaces and so on. If this is from a similar address space or IP range, that something could be arranged, but then this shouldn't be the only security point to which we make a decision for a specific user to access something. So, in conjunction with conditional access or something other, this should be also set up as well. Yeah, it's a little bit painful, but still.
Okay, thank you.
And the overview as well. Well, we've seen the taxi feeds, and this is in fact the name of the server. Plus, if you want to actually set up a little bit more, this is in fact the let's go in there and open a connector page. So come on. This is the name of the server that you actually enter here. Yeah, I need an H. Oh well, sorry. API. This one is in fact. This is the name for the actual collection, and let's say ransomware or something else. So the collection ID is if we collections. Come on. Collection. That's very, very slow. Collections. And I know why it is. So the collections, you get the collection in this format, but it's once you enter, it's not a problem. So what's important here? So the server is always the same, and the name will be so the friendly name in this case, for example, will be let's say fish tank. We'll get the first one, and this will be, let's say, the fish tank. Plus, the fish tank has the ID of 107, and then the ID will be 107. The username is always guest, and the password is always guest. And we can then import other indicators. So all at most of 1 month old and so on. So this is the security intelligence that's being shared, and that we can in fact add. So no spaces in here, and pulling frequency. So as the thing happened, when a certain IP range, for example, becomes malicious, or when a DDoS attack actually happens, the IP addresses and the intelligence information changes. So we are pulling a variety of intelligence information of like ransomware domains, fish tanks, or let's say abused ransomware IPs, or emerging threat servers, and so on. Cybercrime, domain that are false regarding COVID-19, and etc. All these can be added in here. So we are pulling the frequency, and then we are then seeing the data of pulled stream from the taxi servers. Then we can use that in our intelligence and in threat hunting. So we can also see that the correlated workbooks are here, like threat intelligence, investigation insights, indicators of compromise workbooks, and so on, that can actually give us the insight of let's say intelligence data that has been streamed. So these are, for example, relevant analytics templates that use that data that we ingested in here, that we set up to use in these collections, and these are being used to these templates, in fact, are being used as data to generate alerts, actually, to give us the insight if a specific entity that was streamed from taxi servers actually exists in our environment. So IP address yesterday was okay. That in users, for example, our users from Norway, let's say, were connecting freely because this IP address was not blacklisted. But today, that IP address range was used in DDoS attack somewhere, and the information about that was pulled, was actually saved into the taxi service, which we pulled. And then, if something happens within our infrastructure, our environment, we will be able to know about that, and actually the flags would be raised. And in fact, when we actually when we add these connectors, the data is streamed there, and the incidents are then created. So let me quickly go in there. I have 4 screens here. Okay, let's say. Plus, what do we need to do? It's a little bit make this information, well, narrow it down, so to see what happens. So once we have incidents, the things are starting to happen in there, we are in fact seeing the incidents and the products that were generated. That unfortunately I don't have the incidents that I wanted to show you, and all the chain. But let me try and look at some things that we will see. Let's say here, as you click on an incident, you see the information about that. So the events correlated, alerts, and the entities that were involved. I'm looking some entities here that we need to have a little bit to investigate. So let's see, it's me here. Let me, suspicious authentication activity. I'm looking at a specific service in here. And a little bit, oh, there it is, impossible travel activity. And I have also some RDP. Let me see that. Let's just check the impossible travel activity here. So, oh, there it is. It was generated by Cloud App Security here, and we can see that we have these actions that are available afterwards as well. So the evidence is right here. And come on. So currently it's unassigned the owner, so there is no person who's assigned that incident to resolve. It is new one, medium severity, and we can see all the entities that are involved into this. So the timeline shows only one event, which is impossible travel activity. But I can see all the entities that are in fact involved in here. So I can click one. Let's see, this is my account, and see what happened. So in here, I can see that. Come on, is it working? Yes. Is it working? Still? Yes, I need a little bit more data. Alerts and activities timelines show what happened actually, and that the user performed operation on Azure resource from this and that IP address, and so on. let me see why I don't see anything in here. Refresh times are really slow. I can see all the entities involved. Let me click once again. Unbelievable. Come on. And then let's not wait and click investigate immediately. Really slow. And I don't know why. Come on. Okay, so the timeline actually shows the connected events. And these connected events, in fact, are unusual user password reset and impossible travel activity. So unusual password reset, let's see, that's the one that is highlighted. If I click on it, I can see the related entities in here and events. So there are 3 entities. Let's zoom in a little bit. So come on. There it is. Some 3 entities in here, but in fact, come on. And that are connected the lab, and this is the one server and the IP address. So what we can do, we can view the all the information that is connected to that IP address, and there'll be the related alerts or even more. So the list prevalent accounts that are connected to the address. To that IP address is also attached the Office activity account with this IP, and we can also see the playbooks in here. The playbooks are in fact logic apps that we can run. If we have, let's say, a logic app that is that we created to add a tag that has actually, well, what this logic app does, it pulls the information and geotags the IP address. So what we can do, run a playbook. So this in fact will run the logic app. This logic app will in fact add the tag in the incident as a column, and if there are any IP addresses correlated to that, it will geotag that IP address, all the IP addresses, and in fact for that incident, and we will then see the IP addresses geolocated. It means we will see from which country these originated. But in fact, what we also have the possibility to do, let's take a workbook and go to the investigation insights. So what we need to do, I need to have this on screen while going there. So let's take this address and actually click on this one, and I'll open that portal again. Come on. Portal Azure. I need that portal again to have it at the same time. And it's definitely not bandwidth because I'm on the optics, but I don't know what could be else. Why it's so slow. Okay, let's go into the Sentinel. And let's go into the workbooks. This one. And if we go to the workbooks, we can see the workbooks for all connectors, but let's go to the insights. And into the investigation insights, we can see the, come on, the workbooks. You can see the view saved. And that's not true because all these are in fact connected. And refresh should be, come on. Oh, yes, of course, there it is. So now it's something really weird happening with that portal. So you say workbook, and we need that information from here. We want to investigate everything that's correlated, let's say, with that IP address. Let's copy that and go into the investigation insights. What we need to do is raise a little bit, let's say 90 days. Well, let's say it was like 30. What we need to do is go to the entity, in fact, and let's say enter that value, paste and refresh. The query returned no results. Okay, no, this address was not involved in anything suspicious, but let's take this one and in fact paste the other one. Really? Oh yeah, that's why, Sentinel. One, then it'll be the other one. This one should have paste. Yeah, that one has a little bit more. So activity from this IP address is something that is, for example, that we need to investigate. If it's obviously this one is a good one of the good IP addresses. There are a lot, but in this particular incident that is involved in this IP address, we can see all the things that happened for let's say this entity that are active from that IP address for my username and we can see that all the actions that happened in tenant. So whether it's file uploaded, modified, and we can see also the details and the source, of course. We can see also who performed that action, whether it's authentication broker or mobile or whatever it is. You can see that I've navigated to the Power BI and did something in there, downloaded, uploaded files and synced, etc., etc. Did some queries in the resource graph. So if the point is if you've investigated in here and find out that in an incident that there are multiple IP addresses, and then you would investigate these IP addresses, and for example, in this part, well, this is not just one place where we can investigate it. There are a lot more places where we can perform an investigation. And of course, the actions that are here tied to that are, for example, create an automation rule for that particular incident or create an item. And we can then set up the actions based on this particular entity, and this will be let's say if anything happens with these conditions, this account name and this IP address and this and that. So let's change the status. So run the playbook and so on. So if this can be, for example, an address from a VPN range or wherever elsewhere, this is in fact something that we can do. We can also, what I forgot is also tell it that we can do our own analytics. Let's say the custom one that I've made. We can make analytic rules out of the templates, or we can make our custom. Let me see if yes, custom. For example, this one actually searches for information in Office 365. Some malicious and anomalous behavior like mailbox creation and so on. So this is malicious inbox rule, and is detecting on delete all traces of phishing email from some user mailboxes, and the tactics that are tied to that are persistent and defense evasion. We actually, at the time of creation of that analytics rule wizard, we are setting the severity for that, and then we are setting the rule logic, which in fact is the query that I've entered, which in fact it's not showing. I don't know why, because we should see the cast a query language rule here. So based on that rule, what we're looking for, we are investigating, and these entities are in fact defined in the cast a query rule query. We are in fact, for the account that we specify, for the host and for the IPs that we specify that we want to look at, we are looking for full name and user ID. So it will return that information for mailbox, for any host attached that the mailbox was accessed from, any IP addresses and so on. So we can add any information, additional information that is tied to that entity. Entity could be anything from this list. So any Azure resource, cloud application, DNS file, hash, host, IP address, etc., registry key, and the appropriate attribute here that we would like to return. So once we do that, we specify alert details, and these alert details are, for example, alert name format. So we will see the alert generated like this: malicious inbox rule affected user, and it will pull the user ID information from user. It means the user email address. Then we can query scheduling, scheduled querying, of course, and set up that the query will run for a couple of minutes, and it will look at the data from the last X days. I've set deliberately that to 1 day and every 5 minutes, but in most of the cases we wouldn't be doing that because of the burden. We will. For example, the maximum lookup data from the list is 14 days. And in that case, anything that's more than 2 days here, the query will be run every hour a minimum. So that's the minimum that we can place. And because I wanted to generate a data here that wasn't generated actually, so I can't query the user that I was looking at. But in fact, then we can also set up the limit the group that of these alerts that are created for this specific time frame, and also set up the automated response if that happens. So in this case, we could also create our own rule and say, for example, if there are users that are generating this and that such a alert, for example, like VPN or impossible travel, or like some false positives, then this will be mitigated here. And this automated response, this is the list from the logic apps that are supported. This could be anything that we set up. I won't say that, but in fact I will go really slow this. Extremely slow. And once we've done that, once we're done in analytics, the analytics will create incidents based on what we've done, and that is like every hour, every 2 hours, it will scan and then look at it. I know we are at the 2 o'clock. Well, actually at 1 o'clock. I'm an hour in front of you, but if you have time or will, and we can. I'd like to show something a little bit more,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
then depends on what Gisli has to say.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. Well, just a few things in here. Plus, then we have we've mentioned these workbooks. In fact, that are in fact can be updated based on their query. So you will see the green one is okay, and then the orange one is in fact that has the update available. So it will update the workbook. It will then be updated in a couple of seconds. These workbooks actually are queries that will query a specific actions, specific actually data. So let's say AWS is here connected as well, Azure Security Center, protection, and so on, or Azure Activity. So we can see the workbook and then correlate the data in there. And what is even more important is that the hunting in here, it's also based on the incident and the analytics that we've done. So the hunting here, hunting queries are queries that are, let's close this one and hopefully I'm closing a little bit these windows because it's really, really slow and refreshing, practically very slow. Close, close, close. Yes. And these are the queries, in fact, that are pre-built in here. And let's say that we can run periodically or actually manually, for example, in this case, that will scan for all behavior that the query actually describes. So, for example, strange storage key enumeration, for example, or let's say abnormally long DNS URI queries, and so on, and so, or multiple password resets by user. We can actually run query by its own, or we can run all queries, and then we will see. I will close this a little bit. Then we will see. Come on. As it runs, it will see the results and the queries run. Then we have almost 200 of them, and these will actually execute and see the results. So rare audit activity initiated by user, we can see that we have 28 alerts, and as we click on it and go in here, for example, and come on. We can see the query itself. We can see the result, in fact, and the result will bring the custom query, in fact, here that will come on. Oh, it's really slow. It's not even responding to what I click. Yeah, it has a really big delay for some reason. And then immediately the query will return if we have anything. So we can save that query, we can edit it or tailor it to whatever we want. Or, in fact, come on. Or we can see create analytics rule from that built-in query that is in here. What we can do else, it's also the entity behavior, and which is in fact the UEBA. The UEBA or entity behavior actually needs a little bit more of time to run. Let me toggle that mark. So this is the account that actually generated the alert, or IP addresses that generated the alert. This is the intelligence that correlated multiple entities into one event. So this one is gathers the alerts and activities timeline in here. So if we have multiple entities that are that have performed a certain actions, we'll be seeing here them together. So we can sum and also see the activity, and can see that, of course, the events and alerts over time that happen here. A few, sorry, it's actually, I have to be very slow because it's catching the clicks in the wrong parts of the screen. So I've clicked in here, and then all right, investigate, and then the investigation also will show the correlated events. So that IP address, in fact, it's tied to, let's say, this is a huge number of events that are tied together to the Azure Key Vault. In fact, we can see that 2069 are of them Azure Key Vault Access time series, and plus the other ones are, in fact, that are connected to the specific related entities, and this could be one or more Azure Key Vaults, for example. And we can see also how many entities are involved in it. So in this case, one IP address that's signifies all these 2006, and then we can get different insights should we have more data in here. I'm missing the in fact all the data that I needed for Office 365 and all range of that. But let me just take a look at the few moments on the threat intelligence here as well. And the threat intelligence is in fact the list of the data that was ingested by taxi servers, and that's the list. We can, of course, filter by all the threat type and the source as well. So this is these are the taxi server sources. But if we how can we contribute to that list? So let's say these are the values, or for example, bot IP values and so on, or scan IP value ranges, etc., that someone else discovered that we pulled from taxi servers. But how can we actually add our own? We can add our own threat intelligence information in there by clicking Add New, and then we can add 4 different types, actually 5. We can add a domain name that is compromised, or file, or IPv4 or IPv6 or URL. Let's say that it's IPv4. I would say some IPv4. Let's say, of course, this probably won't be the come on. Oh my, 192. Let's say. And 63 and 43. So, for example, we found out that this IPv4 IP address was compromised. It actually not compromised, but that is the malicious one. So why? Because we got specific numerous and continuous and repetitive attacks from this IP address or IP address range. And we can, of course, select the threat types. So the anomalous activity. Why would we do that? Because the Azure Security Center and other threat intelligence sources have discovered some anomalous activity from that IP address. So we are adding it to the list, so we can actually include that in our workbooks or in analytics that in turn will create some incidents from it that we can actually take action upon. So this is the description of what it is. Some suspicious IP address, and name it, of course. So we can add the confidence from 1 to 100. So if we are not so confident, then of course we can, let's say we are pretty sure that, let's say we have a margin of error of 20%, and then we can add a kill chain. For example, this is the let's say this is the reconnaissance or whatever we determine that is. And let's say we're looking at that IP address. First time, the first occurrence was in September, and we're actually looking how it will be perform till the next year, let's say, and created by someone else, and then we're clicking apply one, because this is, of course, it's not a in fact the malicious IP address, but if the IP address is added, then we will be able to actually use it in analytics incidents and throughout the Azure Sentinel. Plus, what else? We have notebooks as well. The notebook actually are using the machine learning, of course, to actually determine based on the data, for example, based on different IP addresses, entities. So entities are hosts, whether Windows, Linux, and other like accounts and VMs. Or, for example, if we have COVID-19 team threats, then we can get insights based on the our own algorithms, based on our own data that we have. If we add it to our machine learning workspace, and then we are able to use it in further analysis of the data that we have. So still we have to have the machine learning account in here created, and we have also we have to have the created the compute tier as well. So with the data that we have, we can then, for example, in this Entity Explorer for the account IPs, we can then perform some our own analysis. We have also the text here. How can we leverage this, of course? And if we have our own data sets or our own algorithms, then we can include these into the investigation as well. And of course, this will be a whole other story, since it's the part of itself, as well as there's a lot more to say and do. For example, this would be like 200 level something and so on, but we can go 300 and 400 as well, where we also discover the and in more detail the machine learning and hunting with Jupyter notebooks and some custom queries. And when we go very deep, well, of course, we have to have some real or sample data generated, which in fact, for some reason, I haven't been able to get into the proper place, and I don't know why. This should be in here, but it's in fact is not. So I missed the whole key, all the kill chain from Office 365 through Azure, through OneDrive and SharePoint list and so on. And then it's easier, and actually then it's more fun to look at it because we have actually simulated and data that show how a user mass downloaded the files and then uploaded them elsewhere to a forbidden IP address range and place, and actually did some suspicious actions like created a mailbox and used it and then deleted it and so on. But in fact, we missed all that in fact data to see that. And of course, as far as the automation, these are in fact a few words about that before we go actually conclude this like 2 minutes. These are the playbooks, and the playbooks are in fact logic apps, like I said, and they're here. The logic apps are there are on the GitHub, on the Azure Sentinel GitHub repository. You can get additional playbooks, or you can create your own. Not so hard to create. For example, this was created automatically, or you can create your own manually. So, for example, not this one, but actually I want to click on that one. This one, in fact, will let's say get the incident from Azure Sentinel and then geotag it for each IP address. It will geotag it and then add a label to incident. So in fact, it will add a label, like I said, to an incident that will then have additional column, and that will say location. Let's just take a look at it. If I've created, or I executed the logic app, and then that logic app should have, if there is any IP address involved in here, tags, and there is. So it's similar. Yes, there is one. It's not the right one because I'm not right here, and I wasn't. Yes, I was, because I was traveling. Actually, it's correct one. And in this particular instance, so it added the correct geotag, the correct location for that specific unusual user password reset in that incident. So it is in fact correctly identified it and added the column. So like I mentioned, so there's of course we can then investigate and see all the correlated events to that. What is in fact would be even better to if I had the data ingested completely, so we can follow the path from the beginning, but unfortunately I hadn't done so. I'm very sorry about that. It would be great to see all the kill chain from beginning till the end. But anyway, yeah, please, if you have sorry for